Before we move forward to the logical operators in our operator sequence over here, we need to understand one additional concept. And that is, if you go to page number 5 of our cheat sheet on section number 9, you'll see truthy values and falsy values. So what is it? So if I simply zoom in over here, you see that in JavaScript, certain values are considered true and certain values are considered false. So let's say there's a Boolean value of true that's considered truthy value. False is considered faulty value. Now let's say if there's a string with certain text in it. It could be text, it could be name, it could be any number of characters. Since it has something, it's considered a truthy value. But if there's a string with nothing in it, like some quotes and no value, it's considered falsy. Similarly, if there's a number, whether it be a positive or negative number, with decimals or without decimals, as long as it's a number which is more than 0 or less than 0, it's considered a truthy value, but a 0 or a negative 0 is considered a faulty value. Similarly, infinity, negative infinity, an object with or without any values, or an array with or without any values is considered truthy. So these are all the truthy values. Similarly, falsy could be nan, which is not a number. Nan stands for not a number. Null and undefined are considered falsy. So that is something to keep in mind. Now moving back to our logical operator, which is the OR symbol and the AND symbol over here. I'm going to zoom in. So the OR symbol checks that at least one of the values which are given to it is a truthy value. And the AND operator does, what it does is it checks if both of these values that you provide to it are truthy. So it's checking for truthy values. OR checks for at least one of the values should be true, and looks for both of the values to be truthy values. Okay, so let's take a look over here. Let's start with the OR operator. So I'm going to just provide it, let's say 0, and then or null. All right. So I provided both falsy values to it. So it says, hey, I didn't find any truthy value here, so I'm just going to return the second value. So when I do that, hit enter, it returns null, which is the second value. If I reverse this order, if I just do null and then 0, it's going to return 0 because it says, oh, this one is not truthy. I'm going to check the next value. Oh, this is also not truthy, so I'm going to just return this value. Now, let's say if I provided some text and then I'm going to first go with a falsy value. So I'm going to do 0, or let's say try to start with undefined. So I'm going to just do undefined. And then I'm going to do, let's say, some positive value. So let's say Aziz. So over here it says, the OR operator does is, it checks the first value and says, okay, this is a faulty value. So I'm going to move ahead and look for the next value. The next value is truthy, so it's going to return that value. But let's say if I do the reverse. So if I do, let's say, Aziz and provided both truthy values, so Aziz and Ali. So what it does is, in this case, it says, okay, I've checked for the first value, Aziz, which is truthy because it has some text. So I know I do not need to check the next value. I'm not even going to go check the next value. I'm just going to return this one. And in this case, it just returns the first value. Okay, so that's how the OR operator works. But on the flip side, the AND operator. So the AND operator, if I reverse it to with AND, the AND operator checks the first value and says, okay, this is truthy, but that's not enough. I need the second value to be truthy as well. So it goes and checks the next value and says, okay, yeah, I got it. Perfect, I got the positive value. So I'm simply going to return the second value. So let's say if this one was a faulty value, I just provided a 0. I'm going to say, okay, this is true, perfect, but I need to check if the second one is true as well. So it's going to check and says, oh, it's faulty, so I'm just going to return the false value. But let's say if both of them were faulty, so I'm going to do null and then 0. So it's going to say, okay, I'm going to check the first value, faulty. Okay, it's false. I don't need to even check the second one because I need both of them to be true. So if I didn't get the first one to be true, I don't care to check the second one. So it's simply going to return null. So in simple mindset, you want to make sure that you understand that the OR symbol or the OR operator checks for both the values or at least one of the values of the two to be true. And once it finds it, it returns that value immediately. If it finds it false, one of the values to be false, it checks the next value. And if the next value is also false, it just returns that false value, the second one. But the AND operator needs both of the values to be true. One practical scenario for using the OR operator or the AND operator is, so let's say if you have a form in your application and you want at least one of the fields to be filled out by the user. So you will actually provide both of these values to the OR operator, and your system, your program is going to check if at least one of the values is truthy or provided value. And if it finds it, then it's going to move forward or save that value, or you're going to do something with it. In some cases, you want two values to be both filled out. So you're going to use the AND operator and say, okay, both of these values should be there for me to move forward or do certain task. So that's one use case. There are many others, but that's the basic idea. Talk to you in the next video.